Hey guys, what's going on? Todd Lamb here, alphanation.com. Today we are going to talk about how to lose belly fat without exercise. I know. I'll give you a couple seconds to crank the volume up on the computer there, get the headphones set up, because I want you to hear this. This is good stuff. The reason I've chosen to address this question in particular is because hands down, it is the question that I get the most. So, buckle up, strap in, whatever it is you got to do to listen to this. Tell the boss that you're going to the bathroom. I don't care, man. Sit in and listen to this stuff, because once you do this switch today, chances are you'll finally shed all that weight. Here we go. I have to lay a bit of groundwork here. That way you'll kind of have an understanding of what it is that I talk about later on in this video. First and foremost, macronutrients. The understanding of what a macronutrient is way more prevalent in fitness today, because the education level of people involved in fitness has skyrocketed, thankfully in part to the internet. The other reason, people just aren't getting the results they want, so they're seeking more information. So macronutrients, three biggies: protein, fat, carbohydrates. So when people talk about what are your macros, they're talking about what component of your daily nutritional intake is each of those macros. So is your protein macro intake 30, 40, 50, 60% of your daily intake? Is your fat intake, 20, 30, 40, 70%? So in order to understand what I'm going to talk about later in this video, you need to understand, first of all, those are the three macronutrients. Next, understanding the calorie or the caloric value of each of those macronutrients in relation to 1 gram. So 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories. 1 gram of carbohydrates equals 4 calories. 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. So fat, as you can see, is calorie dense, and it's double, the other two put together. So that's when you're eating a high fat diet, you have to also be mindful of the calories that you're intaking, particularly in relation to the other two macros. There's not only macro profiles that you need to monitor, but also the calorie intake as well. And in order to calculate those, so if I have 100 grams of carbs, I know that I've eaten 400 calories for the day. If I've eaten 100 grams of protein, I know that I've eaten 400 calories. If I've eaten 100 grams of fat, obviously I've eaten 900 calories. So just to have that basic understanding of what the macros are and how dense they are in calories will give you a foundational idea of what I'm going to talk about in relation to the next part, which is basically what boils down to which fuel source are you using, and why is it that you're using that fuel source to maintain your fitness goals or achieve your fitness goals. So it's not only a question of what you're doing, but why you're doing it. But let me give you a bit of background on how it is that I came up with using this profile successfully across, man, we're going on thousands of people who are seeing wicked results with this new protocol that I've developed. First, it started off in my house. As many of you know, I've retired from operations and policing. I was in the military before that, went into policing, worked K-9 unit, retired as a SWAT team leader. My wife is also on the job. Unfortunately, during her period early on, she was in a devastating car accident. All that kind of rehab, and at the end of the day, she came through it okay. But she still has massive back injuries, and her ability to exercise is somewhat limited. And for when she sustains an injury or it goes out, which many of you with back injuries, if you have them and they're chronic, my heart goes out to you, because I understand it 100%. So the impetus for this program, I needed to develop a program that could be done without exercise. Some soft types of exercises, gentle movements, that kind of stuff was okay, but really at the end of the day, the principle for developing this new program was so that it could be done at home without exercise. So what I did was researched energy systems, fuel sources, and then I also did a ton of research on natural herb remedies, which I'll talk about in a whole other video. But for this video, I'm just going to talk strictly about what your fuel source is. So the majority, if you can actually pinch your tummy right now in any significant sort of way, chances are you're what's called a sugar burner. And all that means is that you're using glucose or carbohydrates as your primary source of fuel for everything that it is that you're doing. Conversely, the other type of fuel source that you could use is fat. The fat that you take and your body can use, it's stored fat for fuel. There's two different kinds of fat in your body, which may absolutely blow you away like it did me when I first started learning about it. You have brown fat and white fat. Again, that's a completely different video. What I want to talk about again is getting back to your primary fuel source. And don't get me wrong, it's not your fault. That is what government recommendations suggest, is that you use carbohydrates as your primary energy source. If you're an extremely active person, if you do a ton of sprinting, if you do a ton of 800s, 400s, that fast twitch muscle work, if you spend a ton of time in that 70 to 100% heart rate zone, like almost none of us do on a daily basis, go ahead, man, eat 300-400 grams of carbs a day, 2,500 to 3,000 calories, fill your boots. The majority of society today is nowhere even close to that. The majority of people are sitting all day long. They're suffering not only from postural issues in terms of joint pain, back pain, all that kind of stuff. I totally get it. You are not doing that high intensity jumping, sprinting, lifting, any of that kind of stuff. You're doing your everyday sort of high intensity interval training, but really low impact. You don't need to be fueling your system primarily as a carbohydrate energy source. So instead, what I propose is using fat for the energy source. So getting back to what I talked about in the earlier stages of this video, the macronutrient profile. If you're going to use fat as your primary energy source, you need to establish your proper macronutrient profile. It's a process of becoming fat adapted. So where the fat you use or the fat you intake on a daily basis is your primary fuel source. That macronutrient profile is primarily comprised of 70 to 75% good fats. We're talking good healthy oils. We're talking animal fat. If you eat animal fat, we're talking things like avocados, all those good healthy fats that come from those fat nutrient dense sources. That is in around 70 to 75%. Protein. You only need to eat enough protein in your life to stay anabolic. Anabolic is where you are still in that muscle cell or the muscle growth, muscle tissue growth. You're not in a catabolic state where your body is actually eating your muscle for energy. So catabolic, anabolic, you only need enough protein to stay anabolic. If you need to Google that, go ahead. That comes in depending again completely about what you're doing. If you're training heavy lifting twice a day, your nutrient profile from protein may need to be higher, but generally speaking, that's in around 20 to 25% of a fat adapted nutritional regime. Then the carb macronutrient. Carbs, refined sugars, those kinds of things, it's no surprise, basically they are wreaking havoc on your system. They're the primary cause for inflammation in terms of unused energy. Again, if you're an athlete that is using a high amount of carbs because that's what your coach has you doing, so be it. I'm not here to dispute what high-level athletes are doing. What I'm talking about is everyday sedentary people who need some assistance with losing excess body fat. So that macronutrient is anywhere from 5 to 10%. So you can adjust. I can see you guys doing some math right now, mathematizing. 70% fat, 20 to 25% is protein, 0 to 5% is carbs. Now those can fluctuate in and around 5% to each other, so you could end up 10% carbs, you could end up 20 to 30% protein. It's not an exact science, but roughly speaking, that is the macronutrient profile for becoming fat adapted. So you're shifting your energy source or your fuel source from a carb base where you might be 30% of your daily intake from refined sugars, carbs, pastas, breads, all that kind of stuff, to a fat adapted, but truly fat adapted, you've got to be upwards in around 70% of your macronutrient profile being from good, healthy fats. Once you get there, you can legitimately do, and this process of adaptation, make no mistake about it, it takes anywhere from, some people metabolically are gifted, they can do it in 4 to 7 days. Other people, it takes 4 weeks. It can wreak havoc on your brain as you start to adjust to that new energy source. It'll play tricks with you. Your body loves sugar. It loves carbohydrates, and they're easy. The thing is, you can still live on a fat adapted diet and eat anywhere you want to eat. It's really simple. What you're eliminating from there is those refined sugars. White bread. Oh my God. White bread, like that's what we grew up on as kids. I haven't seen that stuff in years. I don't even know if they still sell white bread. Bottom line is, you're getting off of those types of foods and you're sticking with foods that have healthy fats. They're lower protein and certainly lower carbs. So as you build a meal for the day, it might look like breakfast, for example. If you're not doing my new protocol, but you're doing your own thing, your breakfast might be half an avocado with an egg. You put that in the oven, cook that up. There you go. That's your breakfast. It's good food. Okay, so you have an understanding now of what a macronutrient is, the calorie density of each macronutrient, and 2 fuel sources that are typically available to you, whether it's a carbohydrate or sugar-based fuel source or a fat-based fuel source. Make no mistake about it, my experience with thousands of people is that their bodies prefer a fat-adapted fuel source. They are more alert, they are healthier, their triglycerides are at normal levels, their energy is through the roof. Particularly people who work night shifts. I've seen it firsthand, and I've given this program to people who work night shifts for a living still. They're flying through them. So, to sum up, if you want to lose low belly fat or body fat anywhere for that matter, and you want to figure out how it is that you can do that without exercising because A, you don't have the time, B, you're injured, or C, you're just getting into it. All you have to do is make a simple shift in how it is that you eat and fuel your body, from sugar burner to fat burner. Okay guys, that's all there is in this video. We can go into more detail in some of those aspects in a follow-up video. Post your comments below. I'll give you a presentation on this entire thing in another video, or you can click the link below in the description and find out for yourself. Thanks very much for taking the time to watch. It's Todd Lamb, alphanation.com. See you in the next one. Boom.